не треба.
Of May, the Ukraine Media Inform is starting its work. My name is Svitlana. We are talking about how to bring home the POWs, and here this story of the families of the 57th Brigade. Maria Klymyk is the journalist at MIPL. She wrote an article about missing from the 77th Brigade. Olena Zavalna's father went missing during the battle at Donetsk region. Maria Plaksii, representative of the initiative group Find and Return 5734, whose brother was released from captivity in January 2024. Lilia Lukyaniuk represents the NGO Wives of Toshkivka prisoners. Valentyn Zabolotny is deputy commander for moral and psychological support of the 57th Separate Motorized Infantry Brigade. Maria, your media initiative for human rights has investigated the circumstances of the missing soldiers from this 57th Brigade. What was the background of that story? What have you learned? Welcome, everybody. The issue of missing persons is a very important issue, given that according to our data, about 38,000 missing persons are there, including both civilians and the military. We can't state for sure this is a final figure and all of those persons are really missing. We have a lot of problems in terms of communicating with the Russian party because they will not report the Ukrainian party who are being held captives. And when it comes down to identifying those held captives in Russian captivity, those who have fallen, the information is not available because we cannot say for 100% that this person is not being held in Russia or a soldier has died. It's difficult to identify those who have been witnessing the circumstances. To gather such an information is very difficult. A lot is being done by the loved ones of those who have gone missing. They go step by step. They have a lot of information. They are researching the issue themselves. And for us, it is the gathering of information in terms of swaps of POWs, because the released persons is the only information we have about those who are still in captivity. The story of the 57th Brigade is a telltale sign because it's a replica of other brigades who are working in the zone of hostilities. And at the brigade, they have a lot of missing persons. We don't have information on them. Their relatives have been searching for them for 2 years now, trying to bring them home. Today, we would like to appreciate the work of that military unit. It's a very rare occasion when the military are ready to communicate with us. It's good that they have made it here and participate at this press conference. It's very important both for us and for the relatives. The participation of the military unit is very important It's beyond their job description, of course, but to communicate with the loved ones, to support them is a very important thing. As for the Brigade 57, we've talked to the relatives whose loved ones either have gone missing or are being kept captives, or we've talked to the released persons. Toshkivka and no Toshkivka are the special points of settlements where at the beginning of the war there were a lot of missing personnel from the 57th Brigade. That territory is still being occupied. It cannot be reached, which goes to tell the story of other brigades. Russia does not provide guarantees of security for the evacuation groups, and it is impossible to get to those areas to return the bodies of the fallen soldiers or to know anything about this issue. As an NGO, we are trying to help the relatives in their complex search for the loved ones. For them, it is quite difficult to bear such a environment of absence of information. What else they have to or can do? We have come here together for the relatives to share their stories, to tell us what they face, and in general what can be done to support and assist them. Thank you, Maria. Let us go primarily to these stories of specific persons. Olena, the floor is yours now. Your father went missing at the time when there were fights for the Bohdanivka settlement. Will you share with us your story if you are ready to do that? Welcome. My father was participating at the fights near Bohdanivka. He went missing in May of 2023. We experienced a transfer time. They say that captivity kills you, but the absence of information can also kill you. We don't have any specific information about my daddy. As for the brigade, the 57th Brigade in the hottest hostilities are rebuffing the enemy. And this is the brigade that are trying, when possible, to evacuate bodies of the fallen soldiers. And of course, they will inform the loved ones if they have any information to share. In general, as we have already heard, the boys are fighting at the Kharkiv direction, a very difficult situation. The war is raging on, and the number of the missing personnel is growing. People of those who are detained and are held prisoners of war. Unfortunately, the absence of information impacts us. The relatives get together in some social media groups to search for the relatives, to identify them. The renewal of the swaps of prisoners of war would have given us a new sign. If my daddy has not yet come back, perhaps some other people will. We don't have other people but relatives. All of us are relatives now. You made a very good point. There are no strangers in this war. Hopefully, all those who have gone missing will make it back. A happy story that has happened to Maria's brother. He was fortunate to come back. He was released from the captivity in January 2024. Indeed, when I talk about the Lugansk direction, I beg you to think back to 2024. We are searching for our relatives. All of them who have gone missing are my relatives too, as my brother is. They have been taken prisoners of war, as my brother was. I implore you to go back to January 2024, when the Russian troops returned from Kiev, all their weaponry was concentrated on the Lugansk direction. They retreated and focused on the Lugansk Oblast. I believe that our boys are heroes, are titans. Why? Because at that point in time, they made possible that major forces, other brigades, other forces, and the government of this country found a resource to rebuff the enemy. At that time, we were all waiting for the international deliveries of weapons from abroad. We were waiting for the assistance from other states. Our boys, I can say with bare hands, stopped the enemy. That is why we have so many persons went missing, so many prisoners of war. Unfortunately, then, because of the massive attacks, the enemy occupied a lot of territory. We were not able to retrieve the wounded or the bodies of the dead. My brother, as we learned later, was taken prisoners of war, and the released soldiers informed us about that. This is very important, why the swaps are important. We knew then that he was in the captivity. Boys who have been liberated, they provide a lot of information about their state of health, something we don't know, about their morale, about the places where they're detained. For the relatives, this is very important. Sadly, we've been searching for the third year now for the missing persons. Some boys, we don't know anything about them, no information at all, either whether they're dead or alive or captured. Missing persons, as we have heard, does not mean dead. In 2 years' time, we receive information that the released boys have seen our relatives when we thought there was no hope. I keep telling other relatives, hope and believe until the last moment. It may well happen that a miracle will take place, and miracles happen in the time of war. Thank you, Maria. Indeed is important that the relatives have not been left alone. Lilia, will you tell us your story and tell us how the government, the military, international organizations assist you in your search for your relatives? My name is Lukyaniuk Lilia. I represent the NGO Wives of the Toshkivka prisoners. My husband went missing in June 2022, Brigade 112, the Brigade of the Territorial Defense of the Kiev region. They were sent to support the 57th Brigade. They were surrounded, and 10 persons went missing on the second day. They didn't make it out of the encirclement. Now 2 years have passed. We have combined our efforts. We are raising the issue at the international level. We keep reminding about our boys. I participated personally in 2022 when we addressed the Pope Francis so that he might assist in getting the lists of the prisoners of war so we know who are dead, who are alive. We also turned to the International Organization of Red Cross. We went to Geneva to share with them the information about our missing military personnel. I also participated at the 64th session of the Council of Europe, where I shared our stories, our histories, the story of our families. We also, in the person of Fedorenko Anastasia, our president of the NGO, talked to the Turkish president, Mr. Erdogan, searching for his assistance in either confirming or telling anything about our prisoners of war. The only source of information is the Russian Telegram channels where we see some confirmation about POWs and those released from the captivity. That's the only source of information about their state of health, about the place where they're held. In January 2023, with the help of the Ukrainian ombudsman, Mr. Lukyaniuk, we managed to get some parcels to them. But there is a problem, we are saying. We don't have a confirmed list of POWs from Russia. And this is a violation of human rights, because once you have not been confirmed as a prisoner of war, you cannot have telephone access, you don't have access to post, you don't have access to parcels from your relatives. And nobody cares and enjoys responsibility. So the relatives don't know what's going on with their loved ones, whether they're dead or alive. Occupied territory is another issue. Of course, the exchange of bodies does take place, but on a very rare occasions. We are all hopeful that with your support or insistence, we will learn more about the lists of POWs. Perhaps bodies will return from the occupied territories. We are waiting for our heroes, because this is the hellish point of the hostilities in Ukraine over the period starting in 2022, as Maria has suggested. They were the live shield stopping the enemy on the strategic route, and it's because of their sacrifice and health we are here, and majority of the frontline cities were not occupied. So we are fighting, we are reminding about our relatives and military personnel, we are waiting for them. I would like to call on all families. We must hope, we must believe and do all we can for our relatives to come back. Thank you, Lilia. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Volodymyr, and thank you for joining us. You represent the military. It's important for the relatives and for those who are still in captivity or have gone missing to be supported by their command, apart from their brothers and sisters, mothers, and the relatives. How do you communicate with the families? How do you support them to hold on, to find the strength to keep on living? How do you communicate with them? Thank you. I am the deputy commander of the 25th Brigade, deputy commander for moral and psychological support. This question makes sense. It's an important issue. As for our military unit, the Toshkivka and our Toshkivka direction in 2022 for us is something, a dark story for us, the history of our military unit, because indeed people were standing as live shield covering whole of Ukraine. Sadly, at this point in time, our unit is engaged in the hostilities in quite difficult and hottest hostility situation. Currently, the unit is defending the city of Vovchansk. Prior to that, we were at Kupiansk and Bakhmut. The situation is very difficult. As far as your question is concerned, my point is that beginning since 2023, when I joined the unit and I was appointed as the deputy commander, we set up the hotline, telephone hotlines available on the website of our military unit on the internet. We are in constant contact with all families of those who have been confirmed dead, prisoners, or held in captivity. As an example, on the New Year's Eve of 2023, together with the volunteers and other NGOs, we held what I call a flash mob, trying to cover as many children of our personnel, both missing and POWs, to give them some Christmas presents. At the unit, we have constant telephone hotlines working, keeping contact with the relatives of the military. We are working with the local centers of recruitment. All the issues that we are facing, we try to resolve them with all the personnel at the unit. We also contact the local self-government bodies in terms of providing some financial help for those who are in captivity. In spring, we provide some perks and help, like wood for fire to keep the house warm. So we are doing what we can. We also provide some coal and charcoal. Well, you have heard that we have come back to the direction of Bakhmut, where assaults campaigns were conducted at Berkhivka, Kromova. Although our military unit is a combat unit, capital U, but we are suffering losses. But when we rebuff and attacks and liberate the territory, all the bodies of our fallen brethren, we try to evacuate them, to send them to morgues to conduct the DNA analysis. It doesn't really matter whether this is Brigade 57 or 56. We're all brothers in arms. We are doing what we can. Thank you, Valentyn. Journalists, you are welcome to ask our guests what you want to ask. Ukrinform, one goes to Valentyn. The release that you have shared with us says that your brigade believes that there are more than 100 persons missing as far as the February of 2024. In general, can you share with us, if you can make that information public, how many prisoners of war you have? Currently, the missing persons for the year 2022, the database on missing personnel is being put together. It is because the quarters was at Lysychansk was shelled and the database was destroyed. We are now renewing and trying to get it back. As for the numbers that you have there in the booklet, that is very likely that the number is as it is stated. My point is whether the number is higher or lower than we have here in the booklet. Unfortunately, I cannot provide an answer to your question at this point in time. I would like to turn to Lilia now. You mentioned that international efforts of yours, how helpful has it? What has it brought? Was there a reaction? And what were the solutions that have been made? All the decisions, the only way to gauge them is the result. Over June, we have 100 people missing in June. And these are the families that we know about. This is the information coming from the relatives. The results, as far as my locality is concerned, we had 2 bodies returned. They were put into graves. So this is the result. Not a single POW has been released over the year period of 2022-23. Out of those who have gone missing, they have not been confirmed by the International Organization of Red Cross. No confirmation, no knowledge of the localities. Information is not available. The only information we have is from the Russian Telegram channels or from those who have been released. Next question will be in English, so you're welcome to take advantage of the devices for simultaneous interpretation.
Media. Over the last 2 years, have you gained better support from the coordination headquarters and the government? And if not, are there things you still would like to see remediated to make sure that you're getting the best possible support? And the second part is from the outside world, aside from Red Cross. What additional supplies and support do you need from the West to make sure that you can get through this? Дякую.
I have one.
Ви можете українською відповідати.
У нас у всіх
All the relatives have one question: when will our loved ones come back? The only result we seek for is information. Even if at the 57th Brigade they have the confirmed POWs, their relatives know about them, and they have not been subjected to the swaps. If we know where they are and they are not swapped, this is a failure. The only result we are waiting for them to come back either dead or alive. I hope that I have provided an answer from all our relatives. That is the only question. It is when. Can I join in? As for the previous question, you mentioned the coordination with the Coordination Center for the Treatment of Prisoners of War and the government institutions. I personally would like to thank the coordination headquarters on the issues of treatment of POW, the Ukrainian ombudsman, and the NGOs and the Ukrainian government, because over these 2 years we have been supported big way from the government. Whatever door we knock on, we receive help. What our requests may be, they will deliver. They also will explain to us the assets and liabilities of the situation. And all the trips abroad have been supported and financed by the Ukrainian government. That is why what we would like to see from the international governments, foreign governments, is their union and help in search for the missing persons and the POWs. For all the foreign governments to get united behind this. It's not the issue with the Ukrainian government. The issue is with the government of Russia, because it is not willing to provide any information. They will not provide information on the POWs, because the Ukrainian side doesn't have any way to influence the Russian government, to impact them. We want the whole world to unite behind this project of returning our POWs. My name is Chuganova Tetiana. I am the mother of a POW. He has been confirmed both by the aggressor state and by the Red Cross organization. He was a Marine at the 36th Brigade. At Mariupol, he was taken prisoner. My question is to the representative of the 57th Brigade. Who is the contact point? Over the 3 years, I have not had any communication with the brigade. Sometimes I am required to present some certificates, certificate 55, for example. The military unit does not provide any communication. They have an human resource department, but I cannot get through to them. The Marines are based in Mykolaiv region, and I believe there must be some headquarters, but they will not respond to the requests of our mothers and wives. What would you advise me as a mother? That's my first question. Thank you. For you to get a communication with the military unit, it's better to go through the local center for the draftees. You should contact them. You should have some help with those certificates. Neither hotline nor the human resource department will not be able to assist you, only the military unit. Let us focus on the topic of this press conference, please. My second question, one of the POW that was released on the 4th of January this year. I would like to ask you the following. The wives and the families, if you know that the aggressor state has been slowing these swaps, why wives and families are not allowed to participate in the negotiations on the swaps of prisoners of war? How can we impact the aggressor state in the process of the swap? Maybe somebody can share your experience. We've been searching for people for 2 years now, and I know the heads of the NGOs, and I know that Mariupol, the community is very strong, NGO is very strong. You should contact them. Once they have failed to help you, there is a coordination headquarters that is negotiating together with the United Center at the Security Service of Ukraine. You know, girls get telephone calls and say, I am back home. I have been part of the swap. That's the only result. If we could influence the process, we would have been elsewhere. You have to turn to the ombudsman, to the coordination headquarters. Of course, we have files of documents of our own. I would like to add here that communication goes through the Russian Federation. The only sticking point here is Russia. However hard your effort can be, all people here will tell you we are doing the utmost. But to work through Russia and with Russia, you can only communicate through the international organizations. The only thing we can is to knock on the international doors, not to let the world forget our problems. When the Red Cross is engaged in visiting those places, perhaps communication will get moving and get some tractions. What I'm saying, we are doing our best. The International Red Cross might have been able to release all of them. Perhaps the journalists would have questions. International Joint Press Agency. I would like to ask Lilia and the military representative, you mentioned the swap of bodies. You mentioned 2 bodies. From the location that I mentioned, 2 military personnel have been buried because their bodies have been brought back. My issue is the process of swaps of bodies. How did it go? The relatives were informed by the investigators One, when the swap of bodies is taking place, the coordination headquarters and the ombudsman informs us that the bodies have been swapped. Then the investigators inform us about the DNA testing. If there is a coincidence of DNA and the confirmation of them, those people are buried. Now, will you tell us what the process is, whether relatives provide their DNA? DNA is provided when persons went missing. The DNA is kept at the special place, and when bodies are returned, then they are tested and examined. When there is a coincidence, the families are informed, because you cannot recognize bodies. How does the military assist in this process? Do they search for the bodies? Do they or they don't? Thank you for the question. Now, to answer your question is this. Once the military unit does not liberate the territory from the enemy, only then are we able to find the bodies of our brethren. These bodies are evacuated. Given that this military has a document testifying to his personality, identity, then this is the basis for the information of the loved ones, saying that perhaps if the body can be recognized, then the tattoos, or there's a finger missing, then the family, if they recognize, then the person's status goes from missing to the deceased. If a person cannot be identified, such a body is evacuated to the morgue, where it is, from where it will be tested for the DNA. As a follow-up question, you mentioned if you find the brethren for the swap fund, you also need the bodies of the Russian soldiers. Does your brigade identify the Russian bodies? Do they evacuate them too? Our brigade has never found bodies of the Russian bodies. Thank you for your answers. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for focusing on this important issue and sharing our histories. Thank you for your bravery and the fact that you are so strong. There are more questions. My name is Stanislav Mereshnichenko. I would like to turn to the military command. How active are you in swapping the bodies or the prisoners of war? And whether you initiate the issue of, or perhaps you are active in providing the lists of your prisoners of war from your unit. Sadly, the military unit is not engaged in body swap. This is beyond our job description as a military unit. As for the question whether we cooperate with the coordination center, indeed, we coordinate our efforts with them, only because when the relatives provide us an information that their relative has been seen in the captivity, we write a request to confirm such an information and to change a status from the missing to the POW. I would like to ask MIHR representative, what you are writing here is the recommendation for the Red Cross organization to visit our prisoners of war in Russia. Do you know of any specific steps taken by the ICRC? Or how do you view, how can we make them do and live up to their commitments? We are often interviewing the people coming back from the captivity. Not a single one mentioned that they saw representatives of the Red Cross. We heard some rumors that there are representatives of the Red Cross at some point in the temporarily occupied territories, and Russia has made sure that Red Cross would go to places like that. But what you know from the released soldiers, the Red Cross will only visit selected persons, and they wouldn't go beyond the premises where they are allowed to enter. We have also been talking to one of the released persons from the 57th Brigade. He was taken captive in Toshkivka. He was at the Lugansk detention center. Over that time, not a single time did he see the representative of the Red Cross, and he was not under the guard of the Red Cross. He was wounded. He was not provided a medical help, and he didn't see any brother in arms while he was detained there. 57th Brigade participated in the fights for Trihizibinka, a place where there were a lot of our soldiers taken captive. They're still there in captivity. I don't know how many, but some of them have been released, and many of them are still in captivity from day one of the full-scale invasion. In Toshkivka, they had 100 persons missing, followed by Kherson region fights, where about 22 persons are believed to have gone missing. Not a single POW has been confirmed. One as I am prompted by the NGO. Then we had Bakhmut and the outskirts of the city with a lot of losses. And because at that time the Wagner group participated in those hostilities, when they left Bakhmut, we don't know where the place where their prisoners who have been transferred to, which makes it more complicated for us to find these people. So the search is going on for the government bodies and for the NGOs and for the families. You seem to have been misinformed. We are talking about June, 223 persons taken captive. This is not to say that this is unofficial information. June, 100 people that we know for sure from 57th Brigade and those embedded with them, and 131 in May and June. But there were other brigades participating in the hostilities. The number may be larger. These are the families that we know about, families that we communicate with. Officially, there is no data available to us. Thank you very much. We all believe that all missing, all POWs will make it back. We'll see them alive. They will join us here in Ukraine. Thank you to our guests. We were talking about how to find the POWs and the missing persons. We've heard the history of their families and the history of the 57th Brigade. At 12 o'clock, we'll be talking about the safe behavior at water and in the woods. Stay tuned.